It's Tuesday, May 14th, 2013. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, passwords and cheat codes.
Let's do this.
So apparently, I've been summoned by the Queen. Or I guess the Queens. I guess we have multiple Queens. I get to finally, after all these years, I'm called up yet again to be kicked out of jury duty.
Well, didn't we already have a whole episode about jury duty?
We did, and you know what? I've never actually been selected, and New York is so much different and fucked up than the rest of the country in this stuff. Basically, they send you a thing that's like, hey, you're gonna have jury duty at some point in the next, I don't know, decade, so fill out this form.
You fill out the form, that means you're gonna have it real soon.
No, so I filled out the form 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. I filled out my form like a week before.
Yeah, so literally then, so that's the main form. So then, remember PAX East? We went there and did our stuff. 2 days before PAX East, in the mail, I get a summons to start calling in the Friday of PAX. So I was like, nope, and I deferred that shit. Now, the cool thing is you get to pick another day to defer, so I deferred. I was like, anytime after May 31st. So yesterday, I got a notice saying that on May 31st, I got to do it.
There you go.
So basically the weekend after Anime Boston. So that's not a lot of notice. And I like how on the thing it says I've already deferred it once in big letters. So if I go try to defer it again, people will give me a hard time probably.
Yep, probably.
So we'll see how this goes. I'm confident.
But at least you're just calling in. You don't actually have to go.
Yeah, I'd rather, I don't know.
I called into a federal court like every day for a week and they said, nope.
I would like to go in because I want to do my civic duty, and if it's some like marijuana thing, I'd love to just let the guy off.
But you're not going to get into the courtroom. You're not going to pass the voir dire.
I'm not going to pass shit.
Even if you even get to the voir dire, I've never even gotten that far.
These people are going to take one look at me, like they always do when I was called up in the past in other places, and be like, get this guy the fuck out.
We should just make a JPEG that's like, jury duty, picture a rim. Nope.
I don't always serve on juries, but when I do, I got my nullification ready.
Sure.
The problem is, I know if I ever get on a jury, it's not going to be like some low-level drug dealer who got busted for pot. It's going to be like rape murders
or who knows something.
It's like it's never going to be something where I'm going to want to nullify.
They don't have trials for stuff that's not for serious these days. It's all plea bargains and shit. So then the only time there's a trial is if it's somewhat of a big deal-ish.
Maybe I'll be lucky and I'll get on like some defense-distributed like federal trial. That'd be awesome.
It's not a federal court, is it?
Let's see what I got called up for. I got called up for... I might get called to any number of courts depending on what they say when I call this number.
Oh, see, I had two separate ones. One was for Queens Court and one was for federal court in Long Island. And it said specifically there were two different ones. So what does it have the name of a court on it? Or does it say New York State or what?
It doesn't say yet. I have to call in to find out.
That's interesting.
I'm a juror for all courts, state or federal, in Queens County.
Very interesting.
So I'm just a standby juror for everything, I guess.
Okay. Oh, standby. So that's not even selected.
It means I call in, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So I'm confident I will not serve on a jury.
Anyway.
And in my entire life.
It can happen. So yeah, doing pretty good at hockey.
Not doing pretty good at hockey. Game 7 in the first round. What? We're not. Rangers are going nowhere.
Hey, we just won. It was 5-0.
You and I did not win. Well, no, you know
Who
what?
said we includes you?
You know what? We did win because the Red Wings are also moving on after their 6 or 7 games. The thing is, the Rangers and the Red Wings are seeded about the same, meaning last. So the only chance they will play each other is if both of them make it to the Stanley Cup final.
The only reason for that is not because we're seeded last. It's because we're in the East and you're in the West.
It's not just that. It's also because we're
There's no way we can ever play each other.
I'm saying we're both seeded last because within our divisions, we didn't do so well.
So it happens, but in the playoffs, anything can happen. Anything is possible. You know, the top seeded teams haven't won the Stanley Cup in a long ass time.
I think that's because of the old divisions, actually, and because of the old conferences.
We got new divisions next year.
Yeah, I'm really curious what's going to happen because the Red Wings have always been a little bit of RIT for a long time. I mean, they basically were not playing against the best teams, so they'd win every year. Even if they didn't actually, they get swept in the first round of the Stanley Cup, but yet they'd make it there with the top seed.
Yep.
Anywho, I kind of want to go to a Rangers game.
Can you afford it?
Well, yeah.
Can you get a ticket?
Actually, yeah, you can buy tickets from the Rangers website. They've got sets of 2 for about $200 a ticket in the outer ring.
You can't see. You're better off watching on TV.
They have.
Have you been to the Garden?
I've never been to the Garden.
Well, let me tell you, the outer ring, you're basically watching on TVs up there.
You know, it's interesting. In the old days, I would go to hockey games because you couldn't watch hockey on TV. You couldn't tell what was happening. And then they added all those graphics to make it slightly better. Like they'd highlight the puck so you could kind of see it. But now with HD, unless I'm sitting in the front row, my TV is actually way better.
I'm on StubHub for, let's see, this game is on Tuesday, May 21st.
There's a game on the 25th, I think, that I saw tickets for.
Okay, but anyway, this is for a game a week from today, all right? Let's see. Actual worthwhile seats
because
Okay, so sitting next to the glass or in the section next to the glass, guess how much per ticket?
Per ticket, is it goalie or center ice?
We're slightly off center ice.
I'm going to say $4.80 a ticket.
$11.50 a ticket.
Wow, that's about double what I thought.
Okay, we're going to go one section behind that. So you're in the middle, you're in the bottom level in the middle area.
Wait, recalibrating.
Farther away from the glass, one section worth.
All right, one section worth, but more close. I'm going to say $6.80.
Yeah, $6.50.
All right, I almost said $6.50.
Okay, so now we're going up, right? We're in the mezzanine, but we're in like the front of the mezzanine.
The mezzanine by the front.
Just the level gallery.
Was for sale legit, not StubHub, for $2.50.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I saw. So
which was that, like center or
not quite center?
Yeah, I'm looking in the more center ice area.
Yeah, for $170, you can sit in the worst possible seats.
Okay. Let's see. Worst possible ticket on StubHub that I can find is in the west balcony.
West balcony, obs.
They're all $2.50 up there.
Wow. Okay, yeah, you can get worse tickets just by buying them because I guess for whatever reason they're available.
Yeah, these StubHubs are all people with season tickets reselling them. The Garden is ridiculously expensive to go there. I'd pay. The thing is, if it's like Stanley Cup Finals, like the cup could appear, I'd probably pay whatever ridiculous price.
I used to see games like that.
That hasn't happened since 1994 when I didn't have any money. And I couldn't go to New York City really just on my own.
No, that was the era when the Red Wings got so close every time. It didn't quite make it.
It was the one year we made it.
I remember it was it 95, I think? It was the year before the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup. And I was watching the game with my brother. My parents had just bought a huge TV, non-widescreen CRT.
Well, they didn't have LCDs. They didn't exist.
I know. This TV was gigantic.
Well, they did, but they were Tiger LCD, not
We bought it specifically
TV.
for hockey watching and nothing else. In fact, I remember I was mad at my mom because I wanted a computer instead. But the computer was still like 10 times the cost of that TV. But anyway, and my brother was upstairs watching the game on his own TV, and Fedorov scored on our own goal. Like it was an accident. It got him a hat trick. And we were already down by 1, I think. I don't remember the details, but when Fedorov scored on our own goal, I hear my little brother go, "Ah!" And then I just hear things breaking.
Speaking of own goals, right? Today was actually at work. I watched the Natural Selection 2 European Finals of Evil Team versus Silly Team.
Wait a minute, own goal, because in old NS, the own goal was anytime you used babblers anywhere near your fucking hive.
No, there were no babblers, but Evil Team won again. Wah, wah. But there was a funny moment that own goal reminded me of where basically the funny team destroyed the IP, made a little base rush, and they killed the commander of the evil team. So someone who wasn't the commander of the evil team got in the chair to build an IP, and he accidentally dropped a few armories that they then had to destroy. So there you go.
Not just leave them sitting there hanging out?
And yeah, you don't need 3 armories in the base.
I don't know. You can have a strategy around that.
What is the strategy?
I mean, I remember my my old NS all OC strategy.
The OCs don't really exist like that anymore.
I know. Thing is, back in the day, before they added the anti-lameness filter, and there was no limit on what you could put anywhere, I remember we would make walls of OCs 4 high, and they would just be behind them would be a wall.
Yeah,
3
but
high
they
of DCs.
In those days you had freaking HMGs to cut them down. There's no HMG anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway,
NS is fun.
Yeah.
So you got any news?
Yeah, so apparently people on the forum were telling me that there was an Adventure Time video game for the 3DS and DS called Adventure Time Hey Ice King, exclamation, why'd you steal our garbage? And apparently it's a Zelda 2 game.
I remember when that came
but it's
out.
very, very short, apparently, but very good, but short.
I remember when that came out, all of our friends who were in the know or in the game were going crazy about it.
Right, I don't think it's worth the full price of a 3DS game. But anyway, they're coming out with a new Adventure Time game called Adventure Time: Explore the Dungeon, because I don't know, exclamation point. And I don't know is in all caps. Much like the last game, it will be developed by the same people and have oversight by P. Ward. So I'm assuming this is pretty much going to be like Pokemon Adventure Time Mystery Dungeon, which is a roguelike, basically. And it says, players striving to save the Candy Kingdom by exploring the mysterious secret royal dungeon deep beneath the land of
Ooh.
And you can play as like freaking every character. So
I'm digging that.
yeah.
I don't know, but I remember our friends all going crazy about it and the soundtrack and everything.
But
But
the
back then, we were not Adventure Time people.
But anyway,
we missed that wave.
Yeah, the difference is that the last Adventure Time game was DS, 3DS. This one is Wii U, 3DS, PS3, Xbox, and PC.
PC. That I did not know.
There you go. So new game is actually going to be on all the platforms with its roguelikeness.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because I got a sort of personal news.
At least I'm guessing it's roguelikeness. If it's a dungeon, come on.
A couple days ago, I got an email. The email was from Microsoft. Your Xbox Live Gold is going to expire and auto-renew
I thought yours was already expired.
So I guess I bought a year ahead, way back.
I still have mine's still going, but it's definitely not
what
going
I
to be renewed
did
again.
is I bought a gift certificate that was discounted on Amazon that was cheaper than a year, and I used that to get my year way back. So I forgot about it. My Xbox hasn't been turned on in like 5 months.
I used mine for Netflix only because the surround sound works, as opposed to the PC, where it also works, but not quite as easily.
So Microsoft, thanks for sending me that email. It reminded me to go shut off the auto renew because Xbox is dead to me. It exists solely to play Street Fighter 4 and Pac-Man.
But Street Fighter you can get on the PC.
I know, but I bought it already on the Xbox.
But I didn't even upgrade it to the arcade version or whatever.
So I'm not gonna I got the arcade one.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna re-buy it. But yeah, it's funny because it wasn't that long ago we said PC gaming was dead, and it was back then. Don't think that I'm gonna retract my statement that it was dead at that time.
The seas of change are changing. Oh, it's the winds of change.
Yeah.
Are changing.
But it is it's PC gaming season, and I've basically
it has been for years, but it wasn't when we started Geeknights, which shows you just how fucking old Geeknights
It's only Nintendo games that aren't really PC'd, and I think the answer is I'm either gonna play those games that exist on DS's. Eventually, I'll buy a 3DS Lite 2, but otherwise all PC. So if a game only comes out on Xbox, I'm just going to assume that it'll eventually be on the PC. I mean, Mark of the Ninja, I've been playing on my HD PC just fine.
Thankfully, there is not even one Wii U game yet that needs to be played.
Yep, nothing critical.
0 Wii U games.
So, yeah, I let that expire, and it was funny because it was kind of convoluted, the process to turn it off.
You log in Xbox.com, you go to your account settings, and you turn off auto-renew with a checkbox.
Not quite. So first I had to go into manage my subscriptions, and there were 2 options. One option was change auto-renew settings, but under there was not an option to turn it off. There were 2 options, and then there was a button that said, don't see what you're looking for, so I clicked on that. And I dug around, and eventually I got to the page that let me turn it off. And actually, the account I set up can log into 2 different Microsoft websites that have slightly different options. I ran into a lot of weird stuff.
If you think about it, right, all this Xbox stuff is really helping people out who don't have computers attached to their TV.
It is. Well,
and all this stuff only really seems pointless to us because we fucking attach computers to our TV, and it's really all it is an HDMI port. That's it.
Well, when I went to shut it down, it popped up a thing, and it's like, are you sure you're going to lose access to? And it was like, multiplayer online gaming, Netflix on your TV. And I'm like, yeah.
Got like 10 other things to get Netflix on my TV.
Kind of. I had a Roku when they first came out.
Apparently the Roku now can do a million things, including video games.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But
none of them do as much as a computer.
Well, it's good and bad because it just shows that a lot of people still don't realize they can plug a computer into the TV.
We should just make computers, just buy, parts in bulk, like just normal PC parts, put together computers like we do, You know, like Dell did when Dell started. You know, Michael Dell in his dorm or whatever, putting computers together, selling them.
Set up some
and just,
kind of
they'll have
OS.
HDMI ports, and we'll be like, these are specifically computers for plugging into your TV.
Well, we preset them
TV
up
computers.
with drivers, with the right interface, with Steam and everything already installed. Good to go.
Exactly.
Just sell them as appliances.
Yep, be like, hey, these are, you know, the like ultimate set-top box. Does everything every other box does. For free, no monthly fee. Just buy the box, set forever.
Well, you know, this is a common trend because do you know how many times, especially now, looking at convention stuff, I see people who do panels or talk about things like Halo, the revolutionary like multiplayer game.
If you never,
and it's like, yeah,
if you never
I
played any
guess.
Quake before,
I mean, if you've never had a computer before and played games on them,
it's a lot of people. They're in a world and they don't see the whole picture. They only see their part of the picture.
well, remember to this day, services like Hulu give you different content on a phone as opposed to a computer, as opposed to a set-top box, because they think that those three are actually distinct use cases and distinct devices.
Anyway, we've gone over that 1,000 times.
We have. So I have a much more interesting news.
Okay.
And this has been around, but a lot of people weren't talking about it until there was this sort of financial disclosure, and then suddenly there were a bunch of articles in mainstream things about it. But basically, World of Warcraft lost 1.3 million subscribers.
Everyone knows World of Warcraft is losing players.
Yeah, but most people did not have the numbers because they weren't public. And two, a lot of it was speculation.
Well,
It was
since
hard to say.
Activision bought Blizzard, those numbers have to sort of be public because that's where they get most of their money from.
They lost 1.3 million users
Out of how many?
out of like 8 million, it says here. 8.3.
That's how many are
no,
left?
8.3 million is all that's left, which includes
okay.
dupes and everything.
So they had about 10 million, and now they're down to 8.3?
Yeah, so they
Okay.
lost 1.3 million
That's still a lot of players.
just in the first quarter of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just January, February, March.
Okay.
It's already late May. So people are talking a lot about this, and it looks like even in 2012 they had a big drop in subscribers, but not nearly as much as now. I think what's going on here is not what a lot of people are saying. So I'm going to posit something to you, Scott. I want to see if you think this is an interesting theory.
All right.
I think the primary reason for this is a combination of cell phone browser free-to-play games,
Yeah.
but that's not the primary thing. It's that coupled with MOBAs.
And
So here's why I think that. There are two classes of people, I guess 3 classes of people who play World of Warcraft now. One, it's
MOBA,
people...
I mean, MOBA is the biggest game right now. League of Legends is the biggest
so
game
I have
right
a
now.
very specific...
But that doesn't mean the people who were playing World of Warcraft
See, you say that.
are now
I think
playing
it does,
League of
and I
Legends.
think there's a very specific reason why. There's 3 types of people who play WoW. People who haven't ever played an MMO before, and they hear about them, and that's the one they probably will find and play. It's like EverQuest used to be. So they're just like the MMO noobs. And they're going to, people get addicted. I got addicted to MMOs. The first time I saw an MMO, The Realm, I sat killing guys for 1 experience point each.
I played MUDs in high
Yeah.
school.
So the second class of people are depressed middle-aged housewives and all that assorted, type of person. The people who play for the grind and they socialize, but they're not really hardcore about the game, but they keep playing it and keep grinding, and it consumes a lot of their free time. Maybe they RP in there with their other friends. The third group of people who continue to play WoW are the people who are into the raid, clan, guild culture. They were the ones where they leveling up and going through the story, they didn't give one fuck about. They had their characters at the right level to then meet with their guild and do raids. And that experience of, here is my team with our voice chat, we're going to go raid Leroy Jenkins style. That was a whole class of World of Warcraft players where the raids were their thing and everything else about the game was just fluff and basically ready rooms. Those people are the people who are leaving WoW to play MOBAs because MOBAs give them that same feeling without the World of Warcraft stuff all around it, and they feel it's much more competitive for them. It rewards their skill and their coordination as a clan or a team much more readily.
I think you're thinking too hard about this. You know why people aren't playing WoW? Because it's just fucking stale. It's that's just all there is to it, right? No game, no matter how much you keep updating it, right? No matter how much new stuff you keep adding to it, eventually any individual person, right, is like, I've played this enough. Even if you know,
you say that.
WoW pretty much maxed it out for as long as you can get someone to stay interested in one game.
That, but so here's my counterpoint to that. This is still just a theory. I got to do some more research. I want to ask a lot of people who have quit.
I'm sure there are people who have stopped playing WoW and now are League of Legends players. But that doesn't mean that like League of Legends was like if League of Legends didn't exist, if MOBAs didn't take off, you think people would still be playing WoW? No.
Actually, yes. I think
that
people,
WoW would have lost these players no matter what, because there's all sorts of other games that would have taken them away.
What games?
And pretty much whatever game existed at this time would be...
No, I don't think so.
No, because look, WoW is stale. People are leaving it because it's just old and they're not, into it anymore.
I think you take
they're
going
to go to whatever game is
here.
out there to go to. They go to TF2. Some of them go to the other MMOs that are free to play.
I don't think so, Scott. I don't think there was any significant shift of people who quit playing WoW in order to play TF2. But I think there was a significant shift of people who quit WoW specifically to play League of Legends.
No, I think people just quit WoW and these other games happen to be coming up at the same time as WoW is going down.
I don't think so, because
and people were leaving WoW before the MOBAs went up.
They were, but not at this rate. There's been a rapid increase in the rate of decrease.
Yeah.
Just recently. And part of my hypothesis is that if you look at the history of MMOs,
it's a correlation. There's no causation. People aren't saying fuck WoW because League of Legends exists.
I think they are,
no.
actually.
What evidence do you have for that besides the correlation?
So
that happens to be the hot game now and WoW is less hot.
So in the past, when people left an MMO, as opposed to just keeping their account kind of active, it was because they went to another MMO. And like I said, there's different classes of players. The people who are all guildy and would really only do the raids, and that's all they cared about, that like pseudo-competitive circuit, they, as a group, played WoW only for that.
I was reading some
no
things,
other game that provided that to them, unless they went over to like EVE, and that's not their kind of game.
Right, so I was reading articles recently, and it was about, it was written by one of the hardest core rating people, because like the hardest core rating group was breaking up and giving up, and it talked about like the hardest core rating competition at the top levels.
Yep.
And pretty much everything they said they were just talking about WoW and how WoW is all kind of bleh now. And they didn't say anything else about another game pulling them away.
Here's why
whatsoever.
I think WoW feels bleh. Because one, the rating people eventually get too good. And look at the differentiation in skill in MOBAs, for example, where the guy who's just a little bit better and studies the game more gets a reward. WoW kind of really leveled out at the top in terms of skill. And I think the guilds and all the other reasons, like the core, like social enablers in those guilds, were leaving for other reasons because they were bored with WoW or because they were just playing free-to-play browser games or whatever.
I think you're just seeing a correlation of these are the hot game now, and that game's losing players. Therefore, make a jump to a conclusion, which is not true.
I didn't say that's all of them. Scott, I suggested something pretty small. I suggested that of one of the three classes of players, a significant number of them are playing MOBAs instead of what they used to do.
Sure, but what I'm saying, you're right, it is not a causation. League of Legends didn't pull people out of WoW. If League of Legends didn't exist, right, if MOBAs weren't hot right now, maybe fighting games were hot right now, the people who stopped playing WoW, maybe they'd be playing fighting games.
I guarantee that's not true.
Okay.
Because the mentality of people who play these games is not to go from... The people who play the game for the guild stuff are not going to quit it to play a single-player game.
Fighting game's not a single-player game.
In the sense that they don't have a team with them of 5 people on their vent server. They play for that coordination. PlanetSide could take some of them.
You're assuming that these people were taken from WoW. They left WoW because WoW was stale.
Yeah,
and
but
every individual person that left stale WoW fell wherever they fell onto whatever game they fell into.
Yeah, now I'm saying a lot of people.
And there are many games to fall into.
A lot of people just stopped playing WoW because it was stale, and there were
League
other
of Legends
games.
Happens to be the biggest bucket right now.
I don't think
the
fact that it's the biggest bucket has anything to do with people shifting to it. I think it's because of the guild culture.
And not really.
I think it's almost 100% the guild culture.
There aren't really League of Legends guilds.
Yeah, there's teams.
At
and it's the same thing.
Most, it's a team of 5 people.
Yeah. And the sharding into these small teams gives them the same game feel as they would have gotten from the raids that were increasingly becoming stale and trover-trodden.
Whatever.
Okay, I think it's a reasonable
You have no
conclusion.
evidence whatsoever. If there's any game, when League of Legends becomes unhot, right, and people start leaving it because it's old and stale, and another game is hot, are you going to just say, oh, that game stole all the League of Legends players? No, it didn't. It's one game is losing popularity, another gains. Some players,
Scott,
whenever that happens, of course, some
Scott,
players that left one are going to be the ones that went into the other.
You're taking the kind of bullshit view
you
that
need
evidence.
You need evidence to prove that the people were pulled out, as opposed to, or that the majority of the WoW people leaving WoW are now playing that.
Which is not what I said.
There's no causational thing there whatsoever.
Plus, you're really making this weird assumption that games are completely fungible. That, oh, I quit playing Counter-Strike because, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons 5 came out.
No, they stopped playing WoW because WoW is boring now. There's no connection to any other game whatsoever.
Scott, WoW had been boring for a long time, and how many people bitched about how boring WoW was, but kept paying and playing anyway? Why just recently has the rate of quitting accelerated so rapidly?
The rate of quitting has been going on for a lot longer. You just didn't know about it.
No, they released these numbers in all their reports, Scott.
Yeah, and they've been that large for a while.
No, and you can look that up.
Yes, WoW has had tens of millions of players, and now it's down to less than 10 million. You're like, oh my god, they lost 1 million, whatever. They lost to millions in the other quarters also.
Did they really? Do you know that?
Yeah. WoW has been going downhill for like a year or two.
Yes, and the rate has rapidly increased just recently.
It was already, the thing that triggered the going down was long ago. You're assuming that something that happened right now has caused it to go. No, it's because it's been a snowball. This is just the middle of the snowball.
Yeah, and I think that I think that MOBAs are a significant factor.
The snowball was pushed a couple years ago.
I think that the MOBAs caused
the MOBAs didn't push the snowball. The MOBAs
who would have just kept playing. Finally had some reason to quit.
The MOBAs are the pile of snow at the bottom of the snowball hill.
I don't think they are.
And
I think
any game could be at the bottom
of
that hill. No.
Okay. I disagree with you strongly, and I asked the listeners what they think.
Okay.
Because so far, every time we've ever had a discussion like this, they always side with me.
All right, how about this, Rim? All right, here you go. We'll go anecdotal, because, you have no evidence anyway, so I'll go with my
the only evidence I have is I was trolling around a bunch of old WoW forums.
Okay, cool. Ready? Think about all our friends. A lot of our friends played WoW, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them, right?
And a lot of them are playing Dota now.
How many of them? Who do we know that played WoW is now playing MOBAs?
Wyatt.
1.
Yeah. And all his friends. I think Jaundice is playing them too.
Who's that?
John.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
As a percentage of our friends.
But the thing is, okay, so who used to play WoW? Scott Johnson, Pete, Lisa, James, all these people. So none of them, they all quit WoW a long time ago, and none of them playing MOBAs.
Yeah, because they're not part of this wave at all. They're the ones who quit for the stale reasons. They were playing it.
I think that's most of the people. No, don't have those rating people are not the millions of people. Right? I think that is a very small community of mere hundreds of people who are the crazy raid people.
Because I think, like, those people, all our friends who quit, was a combination of, one, people who only played because of social pressure from their other friends who actually were into the game, and the other people who played because they were depressed and or addicted to the grind.
Yeah.
That's that other class of people.
That's most of the players. The rating people is maybe hundreds of people, maybe a handful of thousands.
Yes,
it's not 1 point whatever
I
million.
do not disagree that the majority of the players of WoW are the depressed, addicted to the grind people. They're one of the significant class of players. They're the overarching majority of the players. I think if
League of Legends never existed, WoW would still be losing players at the same rate right now.
I think the guilding people would have stuck around longer.
No.
I think they would have, because they wouldn't have had anywhere to go to get their vent fix on, to have their super hardcore coordinate my bullshit.
Anyway, let's...
I need those deeps.
Let's continue.
So I ride a bike in New York City. It's time for Things of the Day. And everyone seems to complain.
Can we not talk about the same thing every time?
We had a bunch of listeners who were like, all you guys ever talk about is New York City and how awesome it is now.
Well, it kind of is.
It is. But 2, I don't think you guys realize that when we lived in Beacon, we talked about Beacon just as often. We just didn't talk about how awesome it was.
Because it wasn't awesome.
But stuff happened a lot. I think you guys forget how often we would talk about how every year there was that crazy St. Patrick's Day pub crawl that would ruin our city for a day.
Yep.
Or the various shenanigans. Anyway, old ladies in the basement getting mad at us about Obama.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is a video that summarizes a kind of person who really exists. He lives only in major cities. He rides a fixie bike, and you will see people who act exactly like this without exaggeration or hyperbole at all. If you go to any major city and look for bicyclists, you'll see one within a few minutes.
Really, they got to make fixies illegal. Then they got to have a cop stand there, and if he sees a fixie, stops him, and says, you either attach this brake to your bike or I throw it in this pickup truck. And if you don't put the brake on your bike, he throws it in the pickup truck and puts a sticker on it and says, come, you can pay $200 to get it back, and you can't ride it on the road again.
A brake and a bell. What I really don't get.
You need the bell, you need the brake, you need lights.
What I don't get about that culture is how anti-authoritarian it is, to the point that those dudes, you know, in the video, the guy's blowing a whistle and shouting all the time. That kind of dude literally will not put a bell on his bike because there's a law that says you have to have a noise-making device to warn of danger. That has to be loud enough in a certain, you know, there's all these rules about it. That dude is just so mad about authority that he won't put a bell on his bike or a horn. And
aesthetics are more important.
Instead, he insists that he can shout loud enough and will argue violently with the cop who tries to give him a ticket by shouting, and then go to court and shout in court to prove that he is loud enough on his own to not need a critical and basic safety feature of a bike.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, these guys exist. This video is not a comedy sketch, but a documentary.
Mm.
You got a thing of the day?
Oh, I guess I have one of those. It's hockey related.
Okay.
Check this out.
Is it an own goal?
No.
Fight?
No.
Own goal fight?
It's close. So, we're about to play the Bruins next. It's going to be rough, right? At least the Bruins don't have their, piece of shit goalie anymore.
Bruins are seated pretty high, aren't they?
Yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
Our goalie's a brick wall, though, so we'll see whatever. But this is from 2009 at a Bruins-Jets game. Actually, the game was in 1987. The video was uploaded in 2009 on YouTube's. Basically, some dude jumps over the boards and gets on the ice and tries to mess with the game.
I have never seen that happen.
Yeah, and...
that happened at a minor league game. After a fight broke out, a bunch of people in the audience jumped over the glass and started fighting with the players. Yeah, so
he suffers the consequences there for his actions.
There's only one thing you can say when you see what I'm assuming happens in this video happen, and that's a shame.
No, it's not a shame. It's what he deserved. Don't go. I mean, if you're gonna run onto the field in some sport, do the naked soccer thing, right? They're sort of used to that.
Yeah.
Do not. The last choice is the hockey ice.
I would do football before I do hockey.
Exactly, and football is a really bad fucking choice. Right? It's like, right? But do not go on the ice in hockey. You can throw an octopus out there if you really want to.
Son of a bitch, the Blackhawks are actually doing really well this year, and I'm kind of worried.
The Blackhawks are like the best team.
I know. I'm kind of worried now.
They were really great last year too, if you didn't notice.
I know. Game's tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, so check this out.
I'm checking.
All right, meta moment.
Meta moment. We're going to be at Anime Boston,
like
not
fucking
this weekend.
next week.
Jesus Christ. Got to finish our fucking 5 panels.
All I've done so far is start to watch Meepros Island and push the mark button a bunch of times.
I love how we're both in the world now. Between Geeknights Presents Utena and all the other shows we do and now these panels, we both will watch shows in Premiere so we can click marks to go back and edit stuff out later. So, yeah, we're doing How to Run an Anime Club. Anime openers from around the world. All anime are the same. Judge an anime by its cover and how to recommend anime. That last one is crucial, you fanboys. Jesus
Christ. Okay.
Emily is doing a panel.
Nice.
Our friend Judith is doing a panel.
Nice.
Exciting times are ahead.
Nice.
I assume Charles Dunbar will be there.
Probably.
Doing his thing. Mike Toole's probably going to be there doing his thing.
Definitely.
I don't think Daryl and all them are coming.
Yeah.
I like Daryl's stuff.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like, why would you come from Florida?
Maybe. Would you come from Florida if it were PAX?
Well, PAX is different than Anime Boston.
Yeah. Well, what if anime were to us what games are? Yeah, that's still not happening.
Other meta moments.
Kineticon, don't fucking submit your panels. The deadline was a while ago. We're almost done with the schedule.
Tough shit. Also, PAX Australia.
We're going to be there doing Beyond Dungeons and Dragons, but a completely rewritten and reimagined one, also aimed at an audience that doesn't quite know these indie games as well as you guys all do.
Well, we assume Australia doesn't know about them as well as we do.
Yeah.
And the book club book is The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. I finished it, and I'm actually reading the book that came before it considered plebis.
The book that came before?
I mean, because, it's... Player of Games is second in the Culture series. It's the second book, but it's not like freaking Lord of the Rings where they go in order, right? It's basically a bunch of books that are all in the same universe, but there's not any sort of serial storytelling, so you can just read Player of Games, no problem. But the first book, which I'm now reading, really, it teaches you more about the setting that, and it's sort of, I think both books, having reading the second one first, it's sort of like you learn the setting from either one. And you don't, it's not like you reading either one of them. You're like, oh, I don't know the setting. It's like, no, you read Player Games, you're fine. You figure out what the deal is with the culture. And you read the first one, it's like, oh, you figure out what the deal is with the culture. Either way, you're good.
So I remember a time in my youth, long ago, where a friend of mine typed in the blood code in Sega
Super
Mortal Kombat.
Genesis Mortal Kombat.
There was no blood code in the Super Nintendo.
That's right.
And I remember he did that, and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, how do I do this in Nintendo?
You can't.
And I tried. I couldn't because the buttons don't quite match up. And then I looked in magazines, and there wasn't one. And then everyone had that dipshit friend who would make shit up about video games. And he was like, oh yeah, there's a blood code. And he just makes some fucking bullshit up. Mm-hmm. He was like, yeah, you got to hit up, up, down, 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 up, up, down, down, up, down, B. And then you got to hold select and press start.
Do you know what the blood code is?
I don't remember. I didn't have a Sega. I was one of the smart kids.
It was ABACABB.
Maybe it's just anecdotal, but where I grew up, anecdotally, the kids who came from nice homes, who were smart in school and got good grades and didn't get in trouble, all had Nintendo. And by and large, the kids who didn't get good grades and came from broken homes had Sega.
Where I came from, the kids who were really good had fucking both.
I knew one kid who had both, and he also had a Neo Geo.
Okay, no one had Neo Geo.
Because he was rich.
We only saw that in video game magazines.
The thing is, he was one of those kids who would invite you over for because he's rich, he's got his fancy game, but then he wouldn't actually let you play it. He would just play it in front of you, and then eventually it'd be time to go home.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped hanging out with that kid.
Yeah.
His name was Dave, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember.
Mm-hmm.
I literally don't remember that guy's name.
Okay.
My friend Joe had a Nintendo, though.
Mm. Anyway.
Yeah. So passwords like that don't exist anymore because they've been replaced by DLC.
Save games.
Yeah.
Well, there's two different kinds, right? I mean, Zelda had a battery in it, but back in those days, having a battery in the cartridge was sort of a big deal. It wasn't cheap to do that. So games that didn't have a lot of save data or a complicated save couldn't really, make the game cost more money to stick the battery in there with the small amount of I guess read-write memory that was required. I paid
$70 for Zelda 2 when it came out, and that's in dollars from a long time ago.
Yeah. So, what it was is every other game that couldn't cost that much would use a password for the save game, and basically when you were typing in the password, you were typing in the save game data encoded as text.
Yeah, guys. Gonna blow your mind if you didn't know this stuff. Kind of like the MMC chips and all that crazy stuff in Nintendo. The password was just you writing down the data. It was saving the game to you.
Right.
And the only way, you couldn't really cheat and game it too much because a lot of games had pretty good checksumming to where you pretty much had to type in a password the game gave you. Mm-hmm. But some games didn't. So remember Kid Icarus, how there are 1 million passwords?
Yep.
That's just because the checksumming was so weak. Maybe it was even non-existent. I forget the details. I'll look it up while we talk.
It just let you put in anything that was valid?
Almost anything. Mm-hmm. So that's why the most famous password in all of NES history, I think, is 8, followed by a stream of lowercase u's.
Yeah.
that made you invincible and put you at the end of the game with infinite everything.
It was like the game had its own Game Genie built in.
So that's where Icarus fights Medusa Angel or Packing Paking came from.
Yeah. I mean, there's the other kind of cheat code, though, which is Konami code. Yeah. Up, down, left, right, B, select, start, right? It's not actually...
I like how you say the select because people who had friends as kids just say the select. They assume it.
That's right.
And people who didn't...
Or losers.
It was always this unspoken thing of whenever we'd all sit down and someone put in Contra, everyone would go silent. And whoever held the player 1 controller just had to do it. And if it didn't work, if you started the game and you didn't have 30 lives, That was the equivalent of a doorknob.
Wah, wah.
That was the faux pas equivalent of in the modern day.
Your cell phone battery runs out.
I was gonna say your DS Lite,
Okay.
or I guess 3DS.
Anyway.
Your Game Gear battery running out.
All right, but those codes, you're not actually like writing the save game memory. You're just, the game has a thing in it. Like, if someone pushes these buttons, do this. If someone pushes this, do that. Like, NBA Jam had a million of them, right? Like, unlock big head mode, unlock mascot head mode, unlock, always on fire, unlock all this kind of crazy shit.
Yep.
Every game goes really fast, game goes really slow,
Now, what's interesting is that those really only existed in an era when there wasn't an internet to look them up, because they added this sort of mythology to gaming.
Well, I think there's a few reasons, right? Number one, game developers would put them in. It all started with Adventure, with the secret room, obviously, right? But, game developers would put them in as sort of like to help debug the games, right? Even once they got, off development machines, right? Number two, they would put them in because then they could sell strategy guides and stuff that told you about them. And video game magazines.
But it was always third-party people who sold that shit. And I don't
also
think they
video
collaborated.
game magazines, also Nintendo Hotline, also, and it, that whole kind of thing going on. Really, it was just a way to get people excited about games, and they basically created information that had some sort of value, and then they could extract value from it. And three, it created this mystique, right? Think about Mortal Kombat with all especially Mortal Kombat 2 with all the babalities and friendships and people, create all these rumors.
That same
and things.
dipshit kid was always like, yeah, if you do the nakedality, they'll be naked, and then they have sex.
Yeah, all that stuff came later on when game companies were really just trying to take advantage of it. NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat 2 are really the biggest ones who did that.
I would bet that a
most.
lot of the earlier ones, especially like level skips and stuff, probably just came out of easy testing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Game developers.
Or they were there as sort of advanced, people who played the game enough. It was basically a way to force someone who bought the game to kind of play through it to a point, but eventually they look up the cheat code and they can skip levels.
Yeah. There may have also been a game or two that was basically like, hey, if we just put these in our game, that'll put those freaking Game Genie assholes out of business.
Game Genie. I remember I was obsessed with Game Genie because I understood the basics of programming, and I understood what the Game Genie was doing. But because it was so poorly documented, and that's partly because there was no good way to document it.
Because Game Genie themselves wanted to make money from codes. That was their whole idea. It was like, hey, we'll sell you a Game Genie, and then we'll, we are publishing these Game Genie code books for all the new updated games. You have to buy those books. Yeah,
but it was also that you couldn't really predict what they would do, because all it would do is change values that were being passed around in the game. So, like, set an integer or something to be a different number.
Yeah, I mean,
which
nowadays
could cause
you
all sorts of bullshit.
Yeah, nowadays emulators have much better tools to help you figure out where. Like, for example, if you open up your SNES emulator, you can say, "Hey, look for the number 254." And tell me if that number changes. Or like, okay, look at the memory right now. I'm going to do something. You pick up a coin and it says, tell me what changed in the past, just then. And it'll say, memory location, this just changed. And you look at that memory location and it's exactly one higher than what it used to be. And you say, aha, that's where it keeps the coins. So you then type in a new value for how many coins, and you notice Link's money just goes zzz, and your wallet fills up and you're like, gotcha.
All right,
but when you had a Game Genie, you didn't have tools like that. You just had to know the memory in the game. So only like the Game Genie people would like attach debug tools to the NES and like examine the memory state. With
so
this
I
fancy
would sit
hardware.
there, and because they gave instructions in the back of one of the Game Genie books that talked about like, so this number, they'd be like, F is more powerful than A. Like, for real. So I just sit there fucking around. I found this page I'll link to that, only the last 2 digits are the checksum, and it's really simple in Kid Icarus.
Mm-hmm.
This guy breaks down how the passwords work pretty deeply.
Yep.
So what's more interesting is that as a kid, for some reason, a lot of people I knew had a lot of trouble with passwords. Like, they could not write them down.
They couldn't write them down? I mean, sometimes you can't remember them if they're complicated, but can't write them down?
I think a lot of it was maybe they were younger kids, or they'd write them down, but then they don't remember if it was a 1 or an L or an I.
What the fuck is wrong with you? I
And
mean,
more importantly-
Xanadu had really awful passwords. I had to keep writing down, and they sucked.
I think Metal Gear was the worst.
It was pretty bad, too.
Because Metal Gear, on re-inputting them, you couldn't backspace. So and you're like moving around like A, click, 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 1, click, 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 oh, fuck! And you just got to start over, like reset the game.
Mega Man 2 had a good one with the grid. Right? The grid was... Mega Man always had clever ways of entering the passwords.
The grid was cool in one way, but it
was
also...
really easy to enter and really easy to remember.
Yeah, but I had to like draw it if it was complicated.
Yeah, you just write down like A3, B4. You didn't need to write, draw a picture of it.
Even A3, A4, that's I think that is more difficult than just typing a string.
What, like 8? You got to remember 8 battleship locations?
I think you don't remember anything. You write it down, and I can write down 1, 5, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, and just remember it.
Anyway, I like the Mega Man system.
It was the trouble I had with it, really, was that I remembered the way to give myself a shit ton of E-tanks, and I pretty much always do that.
Okay.
Because I sucked at Mega Man. And had I not just remembered that password because it was so easy, I might have gotten better at Mega Man when I was younger.
See, every Mega Man password I had, I got. So,
Nah. I would just get him from, like, Nintendo
It's
Power.
like, yeah, I had a password for start of Dr. Wily's level with 4 E-tanks because I got to the start of Dr. Wily's level with 4 E-tanks. And then I kept using that until I beat the game.
It's weird how some games I would cheat in and some games I wouldn't. Like, Contra is always cheat because I couldn't play that game for shit otherwise. But, like, I'm trying to think of a game I didn't cheat in. Guerrilla War, you could continue forever, so it didn't really matter. But at the same time, you could hit, like, AB up. I forget what it was, but if you hit something like that, it would just bring you back in without having to actually
You mean
continue.
Ikari Warriors, ABBA?
It might have been that in... I don't know if it's actually the same or not in Guerrilla War, because they're not the same game.
No. But Ikari Warriors was every time you die, press ABBA and you keep playing.
Yep.
Because if you fuck up, you kill yourself.
I don't know if there's any way...
In real life.
...to beat that game without cheating.
There isn't. It's an arcade game where you're meant to just die constantly.
But it's interesting that when Guerrilla War got ported to the NES, they didn't make it any easier. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not 1, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
여러 가지 안에 한 가지 정도 하는 게 참 얼씨구